Whoop is a popular fitness wearable, but unlike a smartwatch, it is a band without a screen. And that might not look like much, but it is monitoring your body 24 hours a day, and it's popular for a reason. So I wore it every single day for 30 days straight, and the data it collected genuinely surprised me, and not always in ways that I expected. My whole goal was simple. I wanted to know if Whoop could give me genuinely useful health insights, not just data for data's sake, but information I could actually act on. Because in order to use it, you have to pay an annual membership fee, and it's worth knowing if that's worth it. Also, this video is not sponsored. I bought this device myself. So if you're unfamiliar with Whoop, here's a quick rundown. It's a screenless sensor that attaches to a band, and it's fully waterproof, and you're meant to wear it all day long. Now, having no screen might seem a little odd at first, but I actually found it quite refreshing. There's no temptation to scroll and no screen time added during your day. However, Whoop is not a small device. It's nearly as large as my smartwatch. And when I'm wearing something of this size on my wrist, I want it to at least tell me the time too. But I will say that the default band that it comes with is quite comfortable, to the point where I forget that I'm even wearing it when I'm sleeping. There's also a really neat vibration alarm that can wake you up at either a set time or based on your sleep performance, and it's subtle enough not to disturb a partner. But one limitation worth flagging up front is that Whoop currently has no airplane mode. Both Aura and Garmin have one. So if reducing wireless signal from your devices is something that you care about, this is a real gap that I hope that they address in a future update. Now, if you're thinking about buying a Whoop, the first question you're going to hit is which version. There are currently 3 hardware options. Whoop 4.0 is the older version, and it's still available, and it's great for most people. The newer 5.0, which is what I have, offers meaningful upgrades, such as longer battery life, a slimmer profile, and health metrics like blood oxygen and skin temperature. And the MG is a medical-grade version of the 5.0, with ECG and blood pressure monitoring. Now, the hardware that you get does depend on which membership tier that you choose, and there are 3 of those too. Whoop 1 is the budget option at $199 a year. It includes the Whoop 5.0 sensor with a wired charger and a core-knit band, and it gives you access to the core tracking features like strain, recovery, and sleep scores, plus AI coaching. There's also the Whoop Peak, which is $239 a year, and that gets you the 5.0 sensor, the wireless power pack charger, and access to the health monitor, stress monitor, and the Healthspan score, which I will show you shortly. This is what I tested, and it's where the platform really starts to open up. On the highest tier, there's Whoop Life, which is $359 a year, and this includes a medical-grade sensor, blood pressure insights, ECG, and heart rhythm monitoring. It's worth it if cardiovascular health is a specific concern, but most people probably won't need it. Now, all of these tiers are HSA and FSA reimbursable, which does help offset the cost. But one thing I want to be very clear with is that Whoop does not work without an active membership. The device has no standalone functionality whatsoever. So when you're evaluating cost, you are not just buying a tracker, you are also subscribing to the platform. And that's not necessarily a deal breaker, but it's something that you probably want to know going in. But if you do want to try Whoop out risk-free, they offer something that I haven't seen any other tracking brand offer. Whoop has a free trial that is actually free. So you get 1 month of Peak membership and no upfront cost for the device, and no subscription charge. You just pay for shipping and taxes, and they'll send you a certified pre-owned Whoop 5.0 with a charger. And if you don't love it, you send it back, and you have nothing lost except for the shipping fee. Now, even though Whoop tracks a ton of metrics, the main reason why people are so interested in it is its sleep recovery and strain tracking, which is supposed to be the best in its class. Every night while you sleep, Whoop measures 3 things: your heart rate variability, or your HRV, your resting heart rate, and your sleep. And it uses that data to generate a recovery score every morning. This is a number from 1 to 100 that tells you how ready your body is for each day. Then throughout the day, it automatically tracks your strain, or how much cardiovascular load you are putting on your body across everything that you do. So not just workouts, all of it. Now let me quickly define those terms for you because they matter for everything else that I'm going to show you. Your heart rate variability, or HRV, is how consistent the timing is between heartbeats. A higher HRV generally means that your nervous system is recovered and adaptable, while a lower HRV means that your body is still under stress, whether from a hard workout, poor sleep, illness, or even alcohol. It's one of the most sensitive early warning signals that your body produces, and most of us have never had a way to measure it until wearables like Whoop started to make it accessible. There's also your resting heart rate, which is pretty simple. It's just how fast your heart beats when you are completely at rest. It's usually measured while you're asleep. Lower HR is generally better for cardiovascular health, and changes in your baseline can signal that something is off with your body before you consciously feel it. And strain is Whoop's way of measuring cumulative cardiovascular load, not just from workouts, but from everything your body does throughout the day. Think of it as a scale from 0 to 21. A gentle walk might add a 2 or 3. An intense workout adds significantly more. So Whoop adds all that up across the entire day, not just the 30 minutes that you spent at the gym. Strain and recovery are not two separate features, they are a paired system. And once you understand how they work together, the device starts making a lot more sense. So before we dive into the data, which I have a lot of, the first thing I want to tell you is that I loved how hands-off Whoop was. After connecting it to the app, I wore it all day and all night, and I never once had to tell it that I was working out or going to sleep. It just knew, and it was consistently accurate. It tracked my weekday gym sessions, short and long walks, and it never missed a single one. Here's a specific example of why that matters. On April 10th, I did a HIIT session at around 6 a.m. And an hour and 7 minutes later, when I was done, Whoop had logged the entire session. The start time, the end time, my average heart rate of 116, my max of 176, 267 calories burned, and a strain score of 13.9. That same week, Whoop auto-detected both a HIIT session in the morning and a 4.5-hour walk I did later in the day. Both were correctly classified, both with their own separate strain scores, and neither of which I had to manually start and stop with the device or in my phone. Whoop can automatically track 121 different activity types, including things like dedicated parenting, household chores, and yard work. On the days when you didn't make it to the gym but you cleaned the whole house, Whoop is still logging that as physiological load, because it is. Your body doesn't know the difference between a hard workout and a hard day, and neither does Whoop. The second thing that impressed me about Whoop was the battery life. I almost never needed to charge it. And when I did, Whoop has a really clever solution. The Whoop 5.0 Peak comes with a charger that's a slim wireless slide-on device, and it goes directly on top of it, so I can actually wear it and charge my device. So that way I'm not creating a gap in my data because I had to take it off to charge and maybe forgot to put it back on, which happens to me a lot with my other wearables. Whoop says that the battery life will last between 14 to 15 days depending on usage, and that matches my experience. But for all the things I loved about Whoop, there were a few things that I didn't. First of all, that mandatory subscription fee. You cannot use Whoop without one. The device itself is worthless if you're not paying that active membership, which means that you are never just buying a tracker, you're committing to an ongoing annual fee. Now, I covered the specific pricing already, but I want to reinforce it here because it is fundamentally different than most other wearables like my Garmin watch. And that's something that has to be comfortable with you before you commit. Second, the device serves only one purpose. It tracks your health and that is it. You don't get time, you don't get notifications, you don't get GPS. And I understand the philosophy. Whoop is intentionally distraction-free. But when you're wearing something this large on your wrist, it's hard to not wish that it did a little bit more. My Aura ring is barely noticeable, and it looks like jewelry, but it's also tracking me. And my Garmin is a similar size to the Whoop, but it at least tells me the time, and it actually does a lot more than that. So Whoop is sitting in an awkward middle ground. It's too big to be discreet, but too minimal to be a smartwatch replacement. Third, there's no airplane mode, as I mentioned. And fourth, there's no real-time data on your wrist. Because there's no screen, you can't glance at your wrist mid-workout to see your heart rate. So if real-time training feedback matters to you, if you want to see your heart rate during your intervals, you'll need a separate device alongside it. All right, now let's dig into the data, because this is where Whoop either earns its membership fee or it does not. So every morning, I wake up to a recovery score, and it was generally accurate to how I was actually feeling. On days when I had pushed hard the day before, my recovery dropped. When I slept well, it climbed up. Now, that might sound really obvious when you say it out loud, but seeing it in your own data tied to your own specific days and choices hits differently than just knowing it intellectually. On April 10th, my HRV was 32 milliseconds against a 30-day baseline of 34, a slight downward signal. My resting heart rate was 63, which matched my baseline. Respiratory rate was 17.3 against a 17.5 baseline. Sleep performance was 90%, well above my 79% baseline. And Whoop synthesized all of that into a 79% recovery score, with a green designation and a coaching call that said, your body is peaking physically and is primed to take on strain today. And that matched how I felt. So the system was reading me accurately. Now my strain scores told me an interesting story. On a day when I thought I was being relatively light, just a 30-minute morning workout, Whoop tracked a total daily strain of 14.7 because it caught not only that workout, but a 4.5-hour walk that I did later on that day. If you're only tracking your gym sessions, you are missing a significant portion of what your body is actually processing every day. Now, sleep is where it gets really interesting, and where Whoop surfaced something I was not expecting to find. My sleep duration and architecture were actually pretty solid. Deep sleep was above average most nights, and my sleep stress was minimal. But Whoop kept flagging one metric in yellow week after week: sleep consistency. Some nights I was in bed before 9:30. Other nights I was up editing past midnight. And Whoop was tracking that variability and telling me very clearly that this was my weakest link. It turns out that sleep timing inconsistency has real effects on cortisol rhythms, HRV, and recovery. Those are all things that I'm trying to optimize. Whoop sleep data is also the most comprehensive I have seen from any tracker. There are 17 different sleep dashboards covering everything from time in bed and sleep debt to restorative sleep breakdown and weekly trends. It's a lot of data, and I admit that I didn't look at it every single morning. Some mornings I just checked my recovery score and moved on. But the depth is there whenever you want it, and you don't have to engage with all of it to get value out of the device. One thing that Whoop does with sleep data that I haven't seen anywhere else is that it gives you your sleep need in context of what you actually got. So on the morning of April 10th, my calculated sleep need was 8 hours and 6 minutes. That is 7 hours and 24 minutes baseline, plus 26 minutes for recent training strain, plus 16 minutes for accumulated sleep debt. I ended up getting 7 hours and 35 minutes of that 8 hours and 6 minutes, which is where the 90% sleep performance score came from. Other trackers show you just the sleep score, but Whoop is showing you the math behind why your need is what it is. And that helps you actually plan your week. If you have a hard training block coming up, you can see your sleep need creep up and adjust your bedtime accordingly. Now, heart rate variability is a metric that Whoop leans on heavily for recovery calculations. I was wearing 2 other devices simultaneously during this tracking period, and HRV readings across all 3 devices were remarkably close, like within a few milliseconds of each other, night after night. That cross-device agreement gave me real confidence in the numbers. Resting heart rate told a slightly different story. Whoop read consistently a few beats higher than my Oura Ring, which makes physiological sense because finger-based sensors generally get a cleaner signal than a wrist-based one. Now, there's a newer feature in the Whoop 5.0 called Healthspan score, which calculates a biological age estimate based on your unique metrics, and it gives you this pace of aging score. A negative number means that your habits are effectively making you younger, while a positive number means that your lifestyle is aging you faster than average. The AI health coach used my Healthspan data to tell me directly, your strong HIIT work and your solid step count support your Whoop age, but your hours of sleep are adding time to it. And inconsistent timing blunts the full HRV and resting heart rate gains that your green recoveries could deliver. It's pretty hard to argue with that. There's also one more feature worth highlighting. Whoop has this daily journal, which prompts you each morning to log habits from the day before. Whether you drank alcohol, had caffeine, had screen time before bed. It's a little manual, but low effort to fill out. And the payoff can be real, because Whoop cross-references your inputs against your biometric trends, and it surfaces correlations that you would never notice on your own, like how that late afternoon cup of tea might be showing up in your sleep data. Now I want to tell you about one part of Whoop that I did not expect to like as much as I did. And I think it genuinely separates Whoop from everything else in this category. After my April 10th HIIT session, the coaching message waiting for me in the app said, "Susie, you turned this HIIT into a long, steady engine builder, not just a quick smash session." And it then walked me through what the heart rate data actually showed. It noted that this was very repeatable training load, and it recommended a carb and protein meal plus protected my sleep window so my HRV could bounce back. It also had a broader recovery message that same morning that said, "Big push this morning. You already logged a high day with that long HIIT block. Looking at the last week, you have stacked several hard HIIT sessions with some big walking days, with only a couple of truly light ones in between. Your recovery has mostly been in the green and yellow range, so you are handling the load, but today adds a pretty demanding stretch." This is the kind of message that makes it feel like my tracker is actually paying attention. It's referencing the context of my week, not just my morning numbers. And it connects the dots between the workouts that I just did, the training block behind it, and what I should be doing tonight. No other device I tested did that. I've tested out quite a few AI chatbots, and honestly, the one that Whoop has is one of the most human-feeling layers of any other fitness tracker that I've tested. Over 30 days, that coaching language genuinely affected how I thought about my training and my recovery decisions. That's hard to quantify, but it's real. So, after 30 days, is Whoop worth it? Here's my honest answer. It depends entirely on what you're looking for. Whoop is the right device if you want your life tracked without thinking about it. Also, if you prioritize understanding recovery over tracking individual workouts, and you respond to coaching language that makes you feel like something is paying attention to your data specifically. But Whoop is the wrong device if you want to see your data on your wrist in real time. And also if you want to follow structured training plans and you need detailed workout metrics during your sessions. And also, if the annual fee does not fit into your budget, or not having airplane mode is a deal breaker for you. But for me, what I think that Whoop does better than anything else that I've tested is it makes you feel like your data is being interpreted by something that actually knows you. After 30 days, the recovery framework changed how I think about training, rest, and the relationship between the two. That's not nothing. That's actually the whole point. And now I'm looking at my Whoop data after a workout, not just looking for numbers, but looking for that coaching reassurance and that coaching guidance. And if you're wondering how Whoop stacks up against the Oura Ring or a Garmin watch, I wore all three simultaneously for 30 days, and I have a full side-by-side comparison linked below. Now go live better.